Deep in the mist-covered mountains of Jamaica, a legend was forged in fire and rebellion. It's the story of a leader who went up against the most powerful empire of her time. And she didn't have grand armies, but what she did have was brilliant strategy, an iron will, and the unbreakable spirit of her people. This is the story of Nanny of the Maroons.
I mean, just think about that for a second. How does one woman, stolen from her home, forced into slavery, rise up to become such a powerful military and spiritual leader that the entire British Empire had to come to the negotiating table? It's an incredible story, so let's dive in.
To really understand the fire behind her rebellion, you have to understand what was taken from her first. Her story doesn't begin on a plantation in Jamaica. It starts thousands of miles away, across the Atlantic, with a life of freedom that was brutally ripped away. Right, so Nanny was born a free woman. It's believed she was part of the proud Ashanti people in what we now call Ghana, and even there she was known for her leadership skills. But then she was captured, forced to endure the absolute horror of the Middle Passage, and then sold into the brutal sugar plantation system in Jamaica. That experience, that's what forged her incredible resolve. Now, to get this story, you absolutely have to know this word, maroon. It comes from the Spanish word for untamed, and it was the name given to those who simply refused to be broken. They escaped the plantations, fled into the mountains, and carved out their own free societies. These weren't just runaways, they were pioneers, they were nation builders.
And Nanny, well, she didn't just escape to go hide. No way. She escaped to fight. She, along with her brothers, led hundreds of formerly enslaved people deep into the mountains, turning that rugged wilderness into a fortress of freedom and a launch pad for their war against the British.
And what a fortress it was. The Blue Mountains of Jamaica, they became the Maroons' greatest weapon. For the British soldiers, this terrain was just a nightmare, a green hell full of ambushes and confusion. But for the Maroons, every single ridge, every valley, every cave was a home field advantage. And this is where you really see her brilliance. Nanny was so much more than a warrior. She was a brilliant governor. Nannytown was a masterpiece of strategic planning. It was set on a high ridge with only one narrow, heavily guarded path to get in. They grew their own food, they had an organized community, and they even had a sophisticated communication system using the abeng, a type of cow horn, to signal danger or coordinate an attack. All of this incredible organization led directly to their success on the battlefield. You see, the First Maroon War wasn't just a bunch of random skirmishes. It was a masterclass in guerrilla warfare, and it was all orchestrated by Nanny. Just picture it. The two sides could not have been more different. You had the British, fighting a conventional war, marching in straight lines, wearing bright red coats that basically made them walking targets in the green jungle. And then you had the Maroons. They were masters of the ambush, using camouflage, their expert knowledge of the land, and the element of total surprise to just devastate the colonial forces. A typical Maroon ambush was terrifyingly effective. They'd lure a column of British soldiers into a trap, maybe a narrow valley. Suddenly, the sound of the abeng would echo through the mountains. From all sides, warriors would strike, creating absolute chaos and panic. And then, just as quickly as they appeared, they'd melt back into the jungle, leaving the British completely bewildered and defeated. But Nanny's power wasn't just tactical. She was a spiritual leader, known as an Obia woman. The British were terrified of her. Legends spread that she had supernatural powers. The most famous one? That she could literally catch their bullets in her hands. Now, whether that's fact or folklore, it doesn't really matter. The story itself became one of her most powerful psychological weapons. So for decades, Nanny and the Maroons fought the British Empire to a complete standstill. The empire was exhausted, they were losing money, and they simply could not win. They were finally forced to do the unthinkable, make peace with the very people they had enslaved. This incredible resistance all led to this pivotal moment in 1740. After almost a century of struggle by Maroon communities, the British Crown signed a treaty. This was a formal document, officially recognizing the freedom and the sovereignty of Nanny's people. A victory won through decades of blood, sweat, and relentless struggle. The treaty was without a doubt a landmark achievement. It granted the Maroons their full freedom and 500 acres of land to call their own. But
And this is a complicated and tough part of their history. It came at a price. A controversial clause in the treaty required them to stop sheltering new escaped slaves, and even to help the British capture them. It shows the harsh compromises they had to make to secure their own freedom, and it created a really painful divide in the larger fight against slavery on the island. But Nanny's story doesn't just end with a piece of paper. Her legacy grew far beyond her own lifetime, becoming this foundational symbol of resistance, strength, and the enduring spirit of freedom for an entire nation. And then, in 1976, Jamaica officially recognized her contribution in the most powerful way imaginable. She was named a national hero. And get this, she is the one and the only female national hero in Jamaica. That singular honor really tells you everything about her revered place in the nation's heart.
So all of this leaves us with a final thought. Nanny's story is so much more than just a history lesson, right? It's a powerful testament to strategic leadership against impossible odds, about the strength of community and that unquenchable human desire to just be free. It really makes you ask, what does her legacy of defiance and resilience mean for the struggles that we still face today?